Hey guys, welcome to Copium Simulator 2023. World of Warcraft Deez Nuts is the newest expansion for the critically acclaimed and hated video game World of Employee Harassment. Developed by the pedophiles at The Blizzard, and directed by legendary video game antagonist Ian Hazardlight, with the intent of inflicting more copium upon the populace. In this brand new, fun, and exciting hack and slash and bash and crash my mental state, we follow the journey of the legendary video game protagonist named John Warcraft on his quest to escape the Azerothian versions of both Los Angeles and Southeast London. Oh, right, and also hell. To journey to the industrious land known as the Isle of Deez, a place full of dragons, the cast of several hit movies, Big Titty Dragon Mommy, and enemies that we've seen hundreds of times before because Blizzard is running out of new ideas. During his journey, John Warcraft will be prescribed to help the Bangin' Dragons, TM, to help reclaim their home, and they take him in as a pet. And together, with the help of the entire cast of Twilight, Ice Age, and some other movie, it's our job to save the Isle of Deez from the other dragons known as the Bangin' Dragons but cooler. But wait, there's more. John Warcraft was also prescribed to explore the endgame of Dragonflight, including raiding the House of Dragons, even though there's only like 3 dragons living there, making Castle Nathria look like Bangladesh. Running the dungeons to get confused by my buttons and rotation, and cry about how much I suck at the game, and touch on PvP so that I don't get my bum handed to me like I'm both attending and losing an Asmongold mount-off. This is the story of playing what may possibly be the resurrection of the Big Chode of MMORPGs, after the failure of the last 2 Big Chodes. We don't talk about them. And seeing just how much Blizzard has changed their game to get their players back. So sit back and grab a snack, because this shiz is about to get wild. If I say something that isn't factually correct, then don't complain, because I don't care. This video is for fun, not to be serious, and if you think my jokes are serious, then you need to see a doctor. After all, this is the biggest video I've ever made, so you better like it. I'm not giving you a choice. This is the World of Warcraft Dragonflight experience. Somehow, WoW people will find this video, and let's be real, if it doesn't get a reaction from Asmongold, I'll be impressed, even if the video is seen as bad. It's free real estate and it helps me out, by the way. However, since I'm making a video on this game, and not a single one of you know who I am, I figured that I need to introduce myself in the context of this game, because, well, you won't know somebody if you don't flex your accomplishments in a video game. So... what up? The name's Sack. I used to be pretty hard into the game back in early 2020. I was even in a Mythic progression guild at one point that fell apart because some idiots didn't want to deal with the problem, so they left instead. I actually hated Mythic raiding, mostly because Mythic raiding made my mental state fry itself straight into the Shadowlands 6 months early. Explains why I hated Shadowlands. But hey, at least I was getting all those sweet 475 purples, right? I was a raid leader for a bit, and I sucked so much at it that now I wish I never said I was one. I started playing this beauty of a game during early to mid Legion.
You are not prepared.
I am probably the only person that thinks that if you removed Azerite, then BFA was actually good, and for some reason I'm super addicted to making my characters female in any game I play. I wonder why that is. Anyways, enough about me. You came here to see me play a video game, so let's talk Dragonflight. Our story begins on November 15th, the launch day of Phase 2 of the Dragonflight pre-patch. Why are we not talking about Phase 1? Because it sucked. Honey, wake up, new expansion just dropped. Oh boy, I can't wait to play Dragonflight after dropping $50 for an expansion. Let me just boot the PC and the game, get my G Fuel, and open Twitch for my free pets and mounts. Oh, right, I should probably mention that. During the events of the pre-patch and launch week of Dragonflight, you can get Twitch drops for watching 48 hours of WoW content, providing that WoW streamers had drops enables. Sounds like a good way to make McConnell think he has viewers. And considering that the Theldraszus is in those drops, it not only made people pissed, but it made some people think that we were going to get the other ones in the future, which, let's be real, we probably aren't because that's how Blizzard works.
Are you serious?
But it makes it so that those people that spent $3,500 on a TCG card can now jump a cliff knowing that that's $3,500 they're never getting back. And it's gonna make the TCG cards worthless, so sell them while you can, boys. Anyways, being a level 49 pile of dog crap, I waited until Phase 2 of pre-patch to level to 60. Why, you may ask? So I can level anywhere I want without having to enter hell to do it. Thank you, Blizzard, for sparing me of that horrible expansion. Wish you'd done it 2 years ago. I also took a look at the new talent trees, and honestly, Blizzard, you really knocked it out of the park with these ones, with unique choices allowing for abilities never before seen in certain specs, and even allowing your own saved builds? It's crazy, I know. I spent around a few hours leveling to 60, but unfortunately, Chromie decided that I can no longer be tier 3 sub to her, and kicked me out of her dimensional pocket. Now stuck partially through level 59, I guess it's time to actually start the pre-patch event itself. And to do this, we'll need to speak to... Ah crap, not this guy again. He was the one that made me do the horrific visions every dang week, along with that dwarf who smoked coke every day.
Champion. Preparations have been made.
Choking a schlong, Mograine. I ain't going back again. Oh, right, I can't spit because I got removed from the game. Wonder why that happened.
During the dark days of the Cataclysm, the Aspects made great sacrifices to save our world. The Alliance will answer the call and stand together with Dragonkind once again.
You're telling me that after the Cataclysm that all dragons on Azeroth were our enemies for 5 expansions? I have a hard time believing that, Terrellian. Oh snap, it's Blue Boy. Quick, tier 3 sub to him before he complains about his flight again. Hey look, it's a dragon that's better looking than your mom in bed. Am I right? Holy crap, it's mom. Hey, can I get your autograph please? That's all I want, then I can leave in shame, okay? Thanks.
She is Razagath, youngest of the primal Incarnates.
And after them is the 3 guys that she simps for. You know I'm right. Khadgar realizes that he's now got to carry another expansion, except this time, it's not Legion. You know, the one that caused thou that shall not be named? It's about dragons this time. Something completely out of his league, but he'll do it anyway, so that he can get paid for another cameo 2 expansions from now. Now, let's begin the real event itself. Scattered across Azeroth are primal invasions ranging from Earth, fire, water, and air, and these are the forces that make the Earth. Okay, I'm not doing that. You go to these events, kill mobs to spawn a big boss, and then kill it to get a currency called Primeval Essence, which is used to buy eye level 252 catch-up gear. After that, you can rinse and repeat, since these things will change once every 3 to 4 hours, to different elemental types. There's even a special heirloom trinket you can get by getting dimmed primeval gems of all 4 elements. I eventually got it. It took 14 hours over the course of 2 weeks. Thanks, Blizzard. Additionally, once you're at level 60, you can also run Ohn'ahran Legacy of Tyr to get 278 gear. Cool. I invited my fellow comrade known only as the class I hated the most, and now you can watch the montage of me doing these events over and over and over. I ended up getting pretty much fully geared from doing all of this, and the best part is, the currency is account bound, so you can just farm this on 1 tune and send it to your alts. Nice thinking, Blizzard. I bet this is the only time you're going to do it, because of important legal reasons. Later on, I joined a group of people and set my eyes on the re-release of Ohn'ahran. Oh, sorry, did I say re-release? Yes, it's a re-release because this is becoming a trend. I mean, have you heard of a thing called World of Warcraft Classic for the PC? My personal thoughts on the dungeon are that visually, it's a nice upgrade. It's not too massive to make it feel like a different dungeon, but it's not too little to make it feel like it just came straight out of 2007. In my opinion, it looks pretty similar to the original, making it one of the better remasters. Dungeon trash is also solid too. There's a decent amount of free space to work with, not too many mechanics that you need to worry about, but enough to still warrant the player's attention. The first boss, being Magni's Uncorrupted Kids, is also pretty dope. There's some daggers thrown, Olaf the Snowman throws up a berry of music, and then they all get on a ship and fly around, flexing about the fact that they're subscribed, which you totally should do. This is also one of the first times that I played after doing some mild talent changes, and honestly, Prot Warrior feels really good, with a great set of survivability skills with a large tool set to back it up. Asmongold will be proud to know that his class will once again somehow be good yet bad at the same time. Bromok is an interesting fight with ads spawning pretty often. This fight's probably going to be that one fight where you're going to want to stack often to get the ads in, and it's probably also the fight that will result in healers saying screw this and leave. Additionally, there's also a rock you need to destroy because it basically puts an M+ affix into the dungeon, but destroying it stuns all the mobs, so that's cool. Suddenly, the Snakemen show up, and as Barney B once said, Snakemen is a rather strange virus, and I do not want to contract it, so let's get through this as quick as possible. Theldraszus is literally just a fight that says, your girlfriend is pissed, so stop her. And you do so by running the boss through these puddles to drop this buff, which makes it so she can be stunned so she doesn't enrage. Nice job, devs. Can't wait to see how this one unfolds. Emberon is also straightforward, in which you have to dodge flaming balls of torture like you're running from the previous boss, and with his main mechanic being at 100 energy, when he'll run into the center of the room and spawn a line of fire. You'll want to run around the line and kill the ads to remove the line and return to phase 1. At least I can yell at somebody if they did it wrong because I'll know what killed them, right? Shortly after, we get introduced to Infinite Dragons, because guess what? Your girlfriend's still pissed, and later, we get to the final boss, Chrono Lord Deos. He's got your typical dragon things like a frontal. Make sure not to stand behind him, otherwise you'll get sent to Maxor's basement, and my personal favorite, how puddles of sand will spawn on the floor, and to remove them, you have to run and stand in them whilst he's casting Rewind Time Flow, which increases your haste by 50% and damages you too. Cool fight. Cool dungeon. But that's really about it for the event itself. So now, it's time to do the other thing that came with the Dragonflight pre-patch, to make a playable Dragon Furry. Time to make my own Drakthir Evoker, and before we do, I need to start complaining. Why do I have to be a Drakthir to be an Evoker? Blizzard, no one cares if it's for lore reasons. I mean, what if I want to be an undead Evoker that's conjuring spells of the dragons at the souls of the dead because Sylvanas took my liberty and freedom, as well as my wallet? Or, I don't know, maybe a Night Elf Evoker so that I can evoke the spirits of the dead and maybe tie that into the lore to bring back Theldraszus. I'm giving you ideas, Blizzards, come on. I will say that Drakthir have an insane amount of customization options. Oh, well, I think you know how this is going to go. And finally, to name our legally questionable hero. Perfect. Naturally, the main villain needs to be a dragon because, well, I mean, look at the video title. But also, why are people who presumably serve Caligos attacking the Drakthir? Does the blue Dragonflight secretly hate them? Nobody knows. Not even Blizzard, probably. I ran up the stairs and defeated the basic dragon. Well, that felt short-lived, and yet I paid nearly the price of a AAA game for this. Seriously? Alright, I'll give some credit, this place does look dope. Shortly after speaking to a crystal to see some dragons doing dragon things, a Drakthir named Kill Me Horde started proclaiming that he was the best-looking Drakthir on the continent, to which I informed him that Harry Styles is better looking. He tells me that I'm disgusting and illegal, and then tries to invite me to his guild. Yeah, boy. I'm sorry, sir, but no one calls Harry Styles disgusting and illegal and gets away with it. I then make the terrible mistake of dying in the starter zone, making it so that the entire WoW community will now cringe at me, and Harry Styles will become a meme of the WoW universe, which will also kickstart another clip of Asmongold cringing. Soar is a cool mechanic, which it actually gives the power of dragon riding to the player, without a dragon, even though you're technically a dragon. On second thought, why is any of this? We fly over to the west to help the sugar-free dragons and then choke to death. After doing some quests, I later returned to the halls of Hopium and tried not to choke whilst collecting my debt I received from entering Thou Who Shall Not Be Named 2 years ago. During this, the ghost of Kill Me Horde, which I murdered off-screen a moment ago, wanted me to tell you that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. It's completely free, and you can always change your mind. We then arrive in the state of Florida during a hurricane and get told to kill and explore some crap. Quickly discovered that this is one of many Florida things. We then snipe a dragon out of the sky by shooting blue G Fuel at it, then a dragon points at the screen, and then red juice hits him too. He then F's off back to the Shadowlands where he belongs. I hope you like animal grinding, because there's a lot of that where you're going. Suddenly an E-Boy Tauren shows up, and this guy is the one that awakens Razageth. What? Who would have thought an E-Boy Tauren would also do something bad, you know? Never saw that coming. Suddenly, Rathian and Abessian show up and are all like, it's about to get real, and try to convince the Drakthir to side with them, which works actually, because regardless of the issue, dragons are a team. We then set out to the vault to stop that Tauren from releasing the Bangin' Dragon but cooler. Suddenly, the gates open, and it seems that Mommy and son are reunited for the first time in presumably many years.
Ah, and what is this?
The main character, honey, you can't kill him, otherwise Shadowlands happens again. And nobody wants that. She made a typical day in Florida occur once more, and then Rathian got scared and left. What a win. Then the entire island retreats, because now Razageth is pissed that she didn't get her toy from her McDonald's Happy Meal. We then leave the Forbidden Reach after Nozdormu says some stuff like, "You awoke from a shattered past, yada yada yada." You get the gist. We then get to Stormwind, only to then be confronted by the army because Rathian likes to make unannounced visits to various places, which also includes your mom's house. After that, I visit Rathian to learn my Visage form, to which I realize that I'm actually a blood elf. Wait, if I had been a female, I'd be hot and make more gold. No! After this, I repeated the same steps from just earlier, doing the pre-patch event and getting geared. I realized as well to pick my Evoker talents, which are cool. At least I get a choice rather than picking something and praying it works, just like Shadowlands. I did Ultimate on the Evoker as well, which was just kind of the same thing. Over the next 2 weeks, I logged in occasionally to do Ultimate and go do some invasions with some other friends in their alts. But otherwise, I just sat, waiting until the launch night of Dragonflight. And on the night before Dragonflight launch, I log in one more time to kiss Shadowlands goodbye forever, and feeling confident that this was going to be a great expansion, and a good video, I logged off. This is it. 2 long years of waiting. I'm coming, mommy! Oh, you've got to be kidding me! It's not an expansion launch without something going wrong, huh? The servers were up for some time before the 3 PM launch, and the Stormwind docks were flooded to the point where I ask, why isn't it more flooded? And we all awaited a boat leading to the Isle of Deez. There were some interesting things going on as the clock came closer and closer into the release, and then the boat didn't show up. Well, guess we're stuck in the beta lands. April Fools, we got him. Not only did the boat not show up, the boat supposedly crashed and is stuck. Good one, Blizzard. As hundreds, if not thousands, sat around the world waiting on a boat for a dock, jokes began to ring about how the Borealis boat was the right boat, people saying that they were on the boat and on the Isle of Deez, and blaming Blizzard for doing something wrong again. Somebody then tried to become the boat with their own Dreadwake mount, but finally, 13 minutes after launch, the boat suddenly spawned, and we were on our way.
Sure.
Yes. Welcome to the Isle of Deez, a land that's so mountainous that it makes a MILF's chest look like a small hill. And one that mysteriously is on fire. Just like this video. We'll begin our journey here in the Waking Shores, conveniently named for waking up just now, realizing that thousands of people with a Sigma male grind set were stepping onto their grounds. After leaving the ship, I immediately began pulling everything I possibly can. If there's one rule about this game, it's pull first and finish first. I think. I headed to the Wingrest Embassy and unlocked the Dragonscale Expedition, otherwise known as a group of dwarves that call themselves a faction, otherwise known as dwarves. I then signed my name into the guest book, featuring signings such as Chromie, Stonehead, and Rathian's BFF. And being that Rathian is probably going to be a big deal, mostly because he's a Chad, I chose Rathian's BFF. Blizzard even knows how we act based on the last 3 options, so why ain't the game designed like that, huh? Suddenly, Rathian and a Volpera dragon, yep, that's a real thing, show up to deliver some news. We now head to help Rathian, even though, let's be real, we probably aren't actually helping, by heading to the industrial area of Detroit, in which we'll kill several large men and their pets, because apparently they're causing a ruckus, which I mean, they don't seem like they are, so I mean, after some time, we take an egg and head to the Ruby Life Shrine with Celistra, where we get to meet Big Titty Dragon Mommy and skip her dialogue. It's now time to properly learn dragon riding, that system that they definitely didn't steal from Guild Wars 2. Nope, that definitely wasn't stolen. I actually really like dragon riding. You'll see later that there's races you can do, and you can collect glyphs around the Dragon Isles to increase your skills through the dedicated dragon riding talent tree. I proceed to nearly miss a glyph after learning these crucial skills, and decide to sign up for a multiplayer race. Remember this for later. After this, I decided to fly around and found a few glyphs, so it was worth it. I eventually would return to Alexstrasza, only to then have the Bangin' Dragon but cooler show up to cause some trouble. There was a cutscene later that was cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to see 2 dragons fight and then question why the rest didn't show up? I mean, I feel like this should be in a CinemaSins video. After all of this, now we must attend to Rathian's problems, because he too cannot solve it himself. I forced his men through some sad times, and headed off towards the Obsidian Citadel to kill more large men. What's Blizzard got against large men?
What? Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Well, you already know, so time for Mario Kart with dragons. Wrong way, I repeat, wrong way. I didn't even win because I got DC'd. We returned to help secure the Citadel and then gathered the pieces to repair the O-Stone for Rathian. And after doing so, we head to the throne, only to have Sibelian and Rathian go through a brother versus sister conflict of wanting the throne and settle on whoever gets the most praise gets it. What is this, an episode of Sis versus Bro? Suddenly, the world server actually crashes for real this time. Rathian becomes an unknown entity, and my dragon becomes a hat.
Holy Jesus.
I don't think I smoked coke, so Blizzard, is everything okay? The world server was down for around 10 minutes, but don't worry, this was the only time it happened for the video.
More terrifying than
Mograine, shut up! I realized that I had a stream running in the background. Shout out to Maximum, by the way. And then headed with the boys to drive a wagon to the Ruby Life Shrine. Why can't you just fly them on your backs or your mouths? Come on, guys, use your brains. I then chose to sit with this guy for a bit to talk about life.
This view, it may look beautiful to you. To me, it reminds me of how long we have been gone. I barely recognize this landscape. This wasn't some unknown menace, this wasn't some great evil looming like the Legion was. These were our friends, our loved ones. I can remember the horror when I came home to find her standing over the bodies of my family, practically her family. I can remember the gut-wrenching despair as I plunged my claw into her throat, and I remember the hate in her eyes as the light went out in them. But I can't remember her name.
I then discover that we're heading to the next zone on the map, but before I do, I just chose to grab some glyphs and do some races. Now, however, let's get going to the Ohn'ahran Plains. Ah yes, the Ohn'ahran Plains. Who can forget in a grand up-resed and modern edition? We immediately begin the zone by killing a large dragon. Kinda weird intro, but hey, I'll take it. We arrive at a small outpost in the woods to be informed that we're heading to see an emissary of the Green Dragonflight, but we gotta help the Shakar first. Afterwards, we literally go through a cross-continent escort mission, and I suddenly feel like I'm going to get ganked like in that Bond 64 video. Yes, I know you could skip it, but this is a lot funnier. This is either a funny nod to vanilla, or it's just some pain that the devs wanted to put in, and I hate it. The only thing that's cool about it is that it gives some background on who lives here and the problems that are going on. So, story-wise, it's great. After almost 15 minutes, I finally arrive in Marokai, the central hub of the Ohn'ahran Plains. We pick up some quests to visit some clans, and I even get a quest to help with some dude's wedding. Yes, World of Warcraft, a game about war, death, and ruining the relationships with your loved ones, has a quest involving helping plan a wedding. I kill some Nakhut, help these women prepare a completely blackened steak, and then head to the Fields of Ferocity, otherwise known as the Ring of Blood 50th edition. I really like this, it fits with the zone very well. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a classic like this? After finishing there, I head to see Clan O'Neill, to which they tell me to get incense to make some kind of weed. Jesus, Blizzard, what did you smoke recently? I mean, women's milk wasn't that hard-hitting, was it? I then chose to sidetrack and have these two get their wedding in order. Aww. Sweet, hopefully this lover's bouquet can help me love Blizzard again after what they did in Shadowlands. No hate to Blizz. Yet. I then cheat my way through a school exam and reach level 64. Suddenly, Nakhut attacked the village, and now we gotta defend the place, because, I mean, what quest did you expect was coming next? The one where you run away? That wasn't there in Shadowlands, so why would it be here? We then head to Terakai to speak with some people, and then find Boku, who apparently wants to be a simp to Ohn'ahran, which is rather funny, because literally every Murug is basically simps for, to some extent. I headed to Ridgewater Retreat to save the locals and kill one dude, and then headed to Windsong Rise to basically do the exact same thing again. You know, it's like Uber Danger once said, World of Warcraft is mostly a game that involves standing and hitting. It's a lot like Cookie Clicker, but with extra steps. He also forgot to mention that kill quests are everywhere. I'm glad that stays true for Dragonflight. We quote, free Ohn'ahran, and return to Marokai to break the news that yeah, we lost and didn't actually free her. Later, we meet the Green Dragons, including Marithra, the third hot babe of the dragon aspects, just behind Alexstrasza and Ysera. In doing this, they lead us to the home of the Green Dragonflight Oathstone, where we see a large green bubble that we can't go into because that's where all the anime hentai is. FBI, open up! Now it is time to stop Coralith's army by killing only a small part of it, because WoW just can't show the full picture. Just like Nyalotha. Then we kill Coralith and restart the Oathstone. Alright. With this, it's time to fly sky high into the next zone on our journey. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe. It really helps out. But I get the feeling that something great is coming, so maybe I should break. Welcome to what should be called Grizzly Hills, the Second Coming. We immediately start by joining a hunt, but then backing out once I realized that it was a hunt. Okay then. Suddenly, after arriving at camp, the Papa Dragons show up and start spitting flames at everybody, which apparently means that it's time to pick up books and arcane devices. Blizz, if you're going to design quests, at least start by the first one, being to remove the dang dragons. Oh yeah, also Khadgar is here, and he's definitely carrying with an arcane launcher. Caligos shows up and everybody just leaves, realizing that he's a Chad, I guess. I then relog to receive my Twitch drop, my Theldraszus. Oh my god! I then head to the Azure Archives to meet with Caligos, only to realize that this mother duck has like 50 images of himself in this place. That's kind of sus. It does prove that Calig is alone, so hey, let's start a GoFundMe to get this guy a girlfriend. I killed this guy to get a chest piece, and now I have elf ears. I'm a furry, help me. I kill some worms up above and head to the Oathstone, only to then see Sindragosa in ghost form. Simply for the fact that Blizzard can't let go of old characters, otherwise their company will fall apart. Look at Arthas as an example.
That tells me that you still have hope for our king. Child of my flight.
Is it really your flight if you're dead and Kalecgos is not? Just saying. We return to Camp Antonidas and speak with some Tuskar, otherwise known as part of the cast of Ice Age. We later go find Brenna in the woods, recovering from an attack of gnolls. Gnolls being clearly a reference from every degenerate who plays this game, and they're also the inhabitants of Reddit. Along with the blood DK named Mordecai from the hit series Regular Show, we cleared out the cave to get things done, and then headed to the trading outpost. We then all decided to go to the land known as Brackenhide the Coast, and once we get there, Kalecgos shows up looking for ley lines. Now together, we head into the forest with the intent of saving the ley line from the corruption of McConnell's reign as, quote, the best paladin on Kel'Thuzad. We know you think that, buddy. We collect some crystals, murder even more people on Reddit, and Kalecgos actually helps. Holy crow, the main character's helping. Let's go! I killed this rare, only for a son to tell him that dinner is ready, and they run off. Get back here, I need to kill you so I can sell you to Asmongold so I can get to a mythic carry. Now I'm gonna get arrested for Grand Theft Book. Thanks, Kalecgos. Now we head to the great land known as Iskara, a place that has a community of soup that they feed Kalecgos. He was pronounced dead 5 minutes later. We gather items to send a dead man into the flippin' sea before the boat itself becomes a literal shark, and they all start cheering about it. I'm sorry, but what?
I see. You could have said something about being a dragon from the beginning. Seems an important detail to leave out.
Brenna is 100% correct, and yes, he should have said that from the beginning. Now we head back to the Azure Archives to finish our business with Kalecgos so that I don't have to simp for the smallest flight on the planet. There's probably more Volpera than you, bro, and that's sad. Khadgar shows up to inform us that he can't carry this expansion as hard as he thought, and that the Primalists are on the move again. We fly several miles to kill this guy, nabbing me a sweet trinket that basically does 100k damage instantly once I cast it. It's a little broken. I then screwed up the stealth section and had to run away like an anime chick. I then brutally murdered the dragon and then played the game known as the fake lag inducer by shooting another one of Khadgar's many weapons and many elementals for several minutes. After Kalecgos and Khadgar got raped hard by the bangin' dragon but cooler, the rest of the blue Dragonflight shows up and Razagath is like, yeah, no, screw this, I'm out. For the last time, we return to the Azure Archives and reignite the blue O-Stone. Oh, thank God I'm done. Now I can head to... Welcome to Theldraszus, the place that is colored to look like the skin of Thanos, and is also comprised of 70% mountain and rock, so good luck traversing the other 30%. Anyways, welcome to the capital of the Dragon Isles, Valdrakken, a city that is quite frankly confusing in many ways, and you guessed it, is mostly gray, purple, and gold. Just like Thanos. We now get to explore the city by searching for any infiltrators. It's also during this that I choose to pick up my professions, mining, and blacksmithing, as professions are a major part of the Dragonflight endgame. Hope it stays in the game forever. I also sell some reagents that I don't need, which I think is how I went from 10k gold to 70k at one point. Now mining as I go, I begin my journey to Southhold Gate, and continue to realize that the landscape of Theldraszus is giving me PTSD flashbacks of Stormheim and High Mountain in the vertical axis. These guys honestly sound like COD zombies, just listen for a second. For a brief moment, I thought Magma-Sworn said Moss-Sworn. I thought I was in the Shadowlands again. Thank God I wasn't, otherwise the video would have ended right there. Suddenly, we see the birth of a raid boss live on twitch.tv/Aranog, and since we're watching, that's gotta be rough to witness. We head to Valdrakken to report the news, and then Nozdormu tells us to speak with Chromie. Perhaps I can return to her dimensional pocket once again. With haste, I make my way towards Chromie's exact location. After arriving at the best looking temple I've seen in a hot minute, I yelled at Chromie to let me back into Chromie time because I gotta finish Diremal. I acquire some items for Chromie before having to take an Evoker time traveler through collecting time energy and getting temporal collectors. What the fuck? I don't understand how this is relating to get me back to Diremal, but okay.
At this artifact. Oh dear, it backfired. Brace yourself.
Emboldened by the return of their heroic king, Varian Wrynn.
Ah, shoot, I've gone back to level 1. No! Suddenly, we find that we're holding Eternus hostage, and we gotta do, you guessed it, more unnecessary tasks. Suddenly, Eternus and Chromie go on a literal time-walking adventure, and now we gotta go save them by traveling through time. I quickly went back to Valdrakken to acquire some shoulders, gain some fat RuneScape drip, and then return to Nozdormu to begin our journey. First stop, the mailbox, to acquire thousands of revenue. Okay, the first real stop, the future. Eternus and Chromie are just tumbling, because, I mean, babies do that, so ask them. Together with an Evoker and a priest, and nearly dying here and there, we cleared many elites to head to our next destination, Azmerloth. Yes, Azeroth and Murlocs ruled over it. So you do know the impact of Murlocs in WoW, Blizzard. Okay, so then where's my Murloc raid then? I'm waiting. PTSD flashbacks of Magni have just entered my brain. Now it's a race through time, starting in Goldshire, running from the Moonguard, our peers, then heading into the recent aftermath of Barnaby and the Scarab War. They weren't happy that you got Scarab Lord, alright? Then it went straight through a war with pandas and stuff. Sounds like my YouTube channel. Suddenly, we arrive in the one place I know too well, Nyalotha. Who would have thought I'd be back here nearly 3 years later? The last time I was here was Mythic Hivemind and failing a roll on a ring or something. We then fixed the issues with Eternus and Chromie, and now we gotta get out of the raid that ended with the lamest boss kill in World of Warcraft history. I don't know, man, the jailer's pretty close behind. After killing many bugs and contracting bug brain, we return to the present. The Oath Stone comes to life, and Eternus just YOLOs out. Okay then. Suddenly, Chromie and Nozdormu have a moment together, which proves that Chromie is willing to save Nozdormu's life at all costs. Even if that means going to a timeline where they may have smashed and had kids, she's willing. And don't say the fanfictions exist, because they do. Now finished here, we head to Valdrakken to speak with Alexstrasza and oh. Well, okay then. The story of the 4 main zones is now done, and with this, it's time to do side quests, world quests, and other activities to get to level 70. I first chose to go to the Obsidian Citadel to show my allegiance to Rathian, because Spellion can suck my nut. In doing so, I gained the option to do a set of weekly quests that you'll be able to do within the Obsidian Citadel. I quickly joined a group and spent the next 45 minutes killing elites, rares, combining items to make keys, and completing every quest I could so that I can tier 3 sub to Rathian. For a while, I spent my time doing smaller side quests and dragon riding races to continue to gain XP, but eventually I realized that I had to do some dungeons if I wanted to get to 70, mostly because I don't like side questing. So I hopped into LFG and hopped into my first Dragonflight dungeon, the Azure Vault. I'm not going to talk about this dungeon too much, as I'm going to save a lot of it for later in the video. At this point, I reached the fabled level 69 through various means which I am legally unobliged to disclose, and everything from here until level 70 was lost, due to my famous mistake of I paused my recording and forgot to resume it. But don't worry, roughly an hour and a half later, just before 4 AM, nearly 13 hours after the launch of Dragonflight, I did it, and reached level 70. Knowing that I could go to bed safely that night, and realizing that I have to write the script and I had a brain aneurysm, I parked in Dragonflight and comfortably logged off for the night. It's now day 2 of Dragonflight, and now that I'm level 70, it's time to start popping off. All that weekly stuff has reset, and I kicked off the day early by heading to the Ohn'ahran Plains to do some quests and dragon riding, then heading to Ascara to have some soup that I didn't eat. I mean, you saw what happened to Kalik. And then getting into some normal dungeons, like Uldaman and the Halls of Infusion. I then came across the Cobalt Assembly. I was originally here for a world quest which would give me a better sword, but then I realized this place literally stole Torghast's anima cells and reused them. As much hate as Torghast got, I love being overpowered with these power-ups, and it's nice to see them here, so good job Blizzard at making it work. I spent more time mining ores, and then went to do more dungeons, like Algathar Academy and Neltharis. I also went back and simped for Rathian while I was in the area as well, and ruined the lives of Rathian's agents. Later, my item level glitched, and the game thinks I'm 358, even though I'm definitely not 358, but this does allow me to break into heroic dungeons. Unintentionally, of course. I ended up doing heroic Azure Vaults and Algathar Academy, as well as many others that you'll see later. Later, I did go do the Siege of Dragonbane Keep, a smaller world event that honestly is really dope. The added touch of building huts in a camp really adds to the immersion. Not many world events are like this, so good job, Liz. I continued farming heroics to get the gear I needed so that I can do the Mythic dungeons. Now this segment of the video I'm going to try and keep short, mostly because the rest of this is already way too long. I mean, I'm looking at the script right now, I'm approaching 36 minutes, man. I'm going to go through these dungeons in alphabetical order, so let's start with Algathar Academy! This school playground, ripped straight from Clenad, contains the plant life of Suramar, Khadgar's children, and several birds. The birds of which have the unique ability to literally softlock the entire dungeon. Let me explain. In order to start the crossfight, you have to throw these 3 balls into the orange goal floating in the sky. Okay, sounds easy enough. But wait! What if you decide to throw one of those balls into a different goal? Well, you then literally softlock the entire dungeon, and you have to run out and reset the dungeon to keep going. You know, if there's a walk of shame for how stupid your group is, then this is it. Overall, this is a solid dungeon, with every boss having a unique set of mechanics, either it being ads, soaked balls, or playing soccer live on twitch.tv/Amaranth. The Azure Vault! You know, I don't really like Sindragosa that much, and this dungeon is giving some heavy, this is going to be the overtuned one vibes. This place is kind of like a collage of things we've seen in dungeons before. You have enemies that alert others if they get pissed, casts that are important, but as Asmongold might say, probably fine. More things related to trees, because the devs are smoking grass, and Kelligo shows up, but as a dragon, it can mirror image to impale you with arcane energy. They even ripped a boss straight from Wrath's Oculus dungeon and thought we wouldn't notice. Well, we did. Umber Skull also needs to be a mount somehow. Make that happen, Blizzard. Brackenhide Hollow! Yes, this is the dungeon that involves lots of poison and saving Tuskar. Yes, who at Blizzard made this? Overall, this dungeon trash is a bit tougher than I was expecting. Lots of poison and disease casts, lots of whirlwind-like abilities, and an impressive amount of slows and dots. You know, last I checked, you should never have to pay attention, yet here, you have to. At least we get to see the gnolls and whatnot in a dungeon so they can get their paycheck. I can't wait to see them in 2 expansions once again when they're needed for a cameo, just like Khadgar. The bosses are also some of my favorites in this expansion. Many of them requiring to do the fabled thing that DBM says, that being, watch your feet, and always be, you know, doing mechanics. I will say that Brackenhide, much like Azure Vault, is probably going to be one of those dungeons that is mildly overtuned. But hey, I hope I'm wrong, and we won't know until Dragonflight Season 2. Halls of Infusion! Now what you're going to see is 2 different runs of this, mostly because the first one was an absolute disaster. This dungeon is a lot like Halls of Lightning. The difference is that it's 2023, and yet it feels like 2008, WoW is running on a potato from your local Goodwill, and no one knows how to play the game. There are some mobs in here that hit harder than my anime lovers in my dreams, like the containment apparatuses, because they just explode at you randomly, and the first 2 bosses feel confusing with this dude's power overload thing that clearly can't be debuffed. Perhaps I'm stupid. And the second boss is poisons that come from the ads that no one cares about, but they'll make you care about. The third boss by far is the easiest, but don't worry, things still get worse. So much so that I carried the last 10% of the fight, was called a Prot Shad, and then based. Now this corner could just end my life. The idea here is that you have to get from one end to the other to kill an infuser that's not the never-ending waves of aqua ragers and water coming at you. But don't worry, the issue is getting there, and we didn't get there. Eventually though, I did a second run, and it went much smoother. The final boss really isn't a tsunami because it didn't replicate one that well. Theldraszus! I like to think that this dungeon is like the Emerald Nightmare of dungeons for Dragonflight, and that's me saying that this dungeon felt like an utter joke. The trash didn't even feel like it was hitting hard, if at all. Dare I say, their behavior is predictable. The only boss that gave me trouble was Magma Tusk, solely because I didn't realize that him standing in lava makes him do more damage. Otherwise, the dungeon has some interesting bosses with cool mechanics, but it definitely felt like the easiest dungeon thus far, which sucks, because I would have expected a big chunk of men to hit me harder. The Nutcode Offensive! Now this dungeon is another favorite, because it's a dungeon that actually uses dragon riding to its advantage. The instance uses the entirety of the Ohn'ahran Plains, and you use dragon riding to go from boss to boss, kill some ads to spawn them, then kill said boss. It's so simple, yet far more fun than I was expecting. The bosses themselves aren't super crazy, they all have something unique to them, either maybe something like cannon destroyers, keeping them close together, and then killing a Vietnam War veteran solely due to his name. It's a great dungeon, and I hope to see something similar return in the future. Ruby Life Pools! Ah yes, the smallest dungeon on the Isle of Deez. Trash does tend to pack a punch, surprisingly, but not so much until after the second boss and leading towards the third. The variety is strong. You get some Night Elves, some Blood Elves, whelps to the Leroy Jenkins video, and Elementals, all of which cast different things to warrant the player's attention. The bosses themselves are pretty self-explanatory, but even so, what they do have definitely does pack a punch, so don't take them lightly. If anything, this place is kind of like the unsuspecting victim of this expansion, because you'll never truly know if something's going to kill you because it might not. It's entirely up to RNGs to decide that one. Uldaman, Legacy of Tyr! Now, I've already touched on Uldaman earlier in the video, so this is mostly going to be the Mythic stuff. Hey, remember that totem from Bromok earlier? Yeah, well, it's really important to stack now because it only stuns Trogs within 8 yards of the totem, so force your range friends to stack. They'll love you, I promise. Theldraszus, your ex-girlfriend, now makes it more apparent to drop those stacks on her so that nothing bad happens, like losing your Xbox. Deos also has his time 6 thing, but it doesn't really seem to actually do anything, at least from a tank's POV, that is. With all the Mythic dungeons out of the way, that's pretty much about it until December 13th, when Season 1 officially begins. I then did some other things, like weekly quests. Exciting, I know. And when I woke up on that fateful Tuesday, you knew I had to log in and go raid. Welcome to the House of Dragons. I hope you like lots of colored rocks and dragon-like creatures, because that's its main feature. Who can forget such legendary bosses such as Burned Meat, a Slab of Rock, My Lawyers, Spider Saffron, Night Elf Babe Caught in a Storm of Emotions, E-Boy Torin, the Leroy Jenkins spin-off fight, and my personal favorite of all, the Bangin' Dragon. Now, unfortunately, the only footage that you'll see from my perspective is of Aranog, because, yeah, joining a pug group never really goes well. Your best luck is to either be in a group, maybe on a server with lots of good players, or just be an Asmongold viewer, so some of the footage is my own, and most of it I've gone and leached from both Maximum and Megasett. Love the content, by the way, guys. So with this, let's start with the raid opener, which involves flying in on dragons and killing trash. Sounds normal, apart from the dragon riding part. Really makes me realize that they're ingrating dragon riding into the raids even. Wish I'd come out here, though. Aranog! Hey, it's that guy that we saw get corrupted earlier, remember? I'm not going to go over mechanics that much, nor in detail of these fights during this segment, as, well, there are other YouTube channels that do that already, but I will touch on some of my favorite things that occur within these fights. I like the fact that the tank swap mechanic is a stacking dot, because it actually makes taunting back and forth a little bit more fun, rather than it just being 2 stacks and go. Not sure if you feel that way. The ads that spawn are also cool to deal with since they don't hit me, and the Lava Elemental Wall of Doom is admittedly basic, but it's a nice touch. It's a solid raid boss for Dragonflight, and I'd love to see more fights designed like this. Just make them slightly more interesting. However, I will say that in my opinion, Shriekwing is better. Also, I hate that the loot is handled like this now. Come at me, let's go. Terros! This guy has similarities to many previous fights in WoW, like your big soak mechanic, the covering of the room like Sire Denathrius, circles you don't want to stand in, and tank mechanics that make you destroy these pillars. All around, it's pretty simple. However, I will continue to question how Terros has 220 million health with 30 people on normal. I'm sorry, but that seems a bit high. But then again, he's a rock much like Dwayne is, so it makes sense. The Primal Council! So this is basically what happens when my completely made-up lawyers show up to deliver justice for the many British pounds I stole. Which is funny, because I'm not British. This fight does have a fair bit going on, since, you know, all 4 of these guys do something important. It's one of those fights that's going to take time to get used to, instead of Aranog, where you can just walk in and spank him. Sinner! This guy is otherwise known as Sephiroth Spider Edition. He spits large amounts of his own fecal matter in the form of webs at you, and spawns many ads that you have to deal with. Oh yeah, you also might want to spread them legs, primarily for said webs, because they kinda go everywhere. This fight sounds kinda sus, not gonna lie. Altogether, I do like that you're running up a big staircase spiral the entire time, so hey, at least that's different. Dathia Ascended! You know, why is Ascended at the end of her name anyway? What, was her previous standard version not good enough and she paid Blizzard $100 to get the epic edition of Dragonflight, now she's ascending into the Shadowlands somehow? Wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. This fight has many things that are standard in most dungeon fights, such as a spread, a knockback, and of course, the big suck. You also got some ads that do that same knockback, but don't worry, because on Heroic, you're going to be going to different platforms using that knockback, so you better know how to fly. And yes, that means you too, Demon Hunters and Evokers. Just don't kill each other with rescue, alright? Consider this your physics lesson for the year. Kura Grim Totem! Ah yes, my e-boy Torin friend, who we met earlier on in the video. So glad you can make it to your intervention/AA meeting. We need to discuss how you kind of suck AIDS for being a mid-tier fight. I hope you brought your tissues, this is gonna be rough. You could say that we're the quirked up white boys here to bust it down sexual style. We talked to your creators about this one. The only cool thing about this fight is that each section of the room is a different primal element, and he transbombs on the spot when you change the sections, so at least he's ready for that Asmongold transbomb comp, am I right? The mechanics in this fight are also pretty straightforward. So straightforward that you may forget that you're in a raid environment, just like Leroy Jenkins did many years ago. You got your don't stand in this, run around like you're on fire, and the Halo ring ripped straight from Halls of Infusion. Thankfully, we ruined his life. Now we won't have to worry about the trans community in this game. Never mind, I just remembered that Pelagos is in the game. Never mind. Broodkeeper Diana! Welcome to the boss that is giving me PTSD flashbacks of PWL and Leroy Jenkins. Let's be real, that Leroy Jenkins probably can't sabotage your raid in retail World of Warcraft for the PC, but one that can is Slap My Dog from Liquid Split Raids. The idea of this fight is to destroy the eggs so the boss can be damaged below a certain threshold, which is there because of the eggs. Egg spawn ads, you kill the ads, rinse and repeat. As Max said, this fight is easy and normal. I wouldn't know because I didn't do the fight, and most likely I never will. After all, my last raiding attempt resulted in a guild disband, so probably not the best idea. Razagath the Storm Eater! Who can forget the Bangin' Dragon, because she was just introduced to the story literally 2 weeks prior to the opening of the raid. Enough time, right? Playing on a visually stunning 20 FPS 2000 PC ripped straight from your local Walmart, the Razuler does even more knockbacks and makes many lightning things occur. You could say that you've been thunderstruck. She also sends you to other platforms other than her own to kill more ads, because the game can't get enough of the player hitting more buttons and stalling for a whopping 10-minute normal raid fight. This fight seems like an absolute treat to do, with lots of things to be looking out for, but surprisingly, lots of things to be excited for. Lots of abilities to dodge or soak, and moving is a major priority with certain mechanics. In fact, the entire raid itself seems to be received pretty positively from the community, so good job, Blizz. The end cinematic rolls to find that the rest of the Bangin' Dragons have been released, thus Blizzard is showing us the next 3 raid bosses for the next few raids many months early. Good one, Blizz.
Khadgar, We cannot win this fight.
Blue Boy actually makes a good point for once. Nice job, Kalik. Also, by the way, Khadgar, this is your last cameo for the last 6 months, alright? See you in Temple Run. So, Vault of the Dragonkin. Pretty solid raid, but I'm gonna be real, why do most of these bosses have some kind of knockback mechanic? Like, seriously, you don't need to knock us back from the allegations like that much, like, good lord. I do intend to make my way to its rocky, meme-filled, and quite frankly, quirky walls again soon. But for now, it's time to move into the next segment of Dragonflight Endgame, that being PvP. There really isn't much I need to say about PvP, so this segment is probably going to be pretty short. PvP, you got your arenas, your battlegrounds, your solo queue, I'm sure you know what that is. Doing so gets you things like Conquest and Honor that can be used to get gear at PvP vendors in Baldraken. You can also get cool titles like Crimson Gladiator for reaching 2400 rating, and this insanely dope looking dragon as well. You can even customize your dragon riding Drake to look like the Crimson Gladiator mount as well. Pretty dope. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a PvPer. Heck, I honestly suck at any form of PvP combat. You don't even know my dark hatred for Warlocks and Mistweavers. They're in my nightmares, man. Overall, it's your typical standard PvP season, and there isn't much to say about it. But now, let's move into our final segment for the video, Mythic Plus. Now, because I've already touched on most of the Dragonflight dungeons, the M+ portion of this video is mostly going to be focusing on the legacy dungeons that are in the dungeon pool. So, let's start off with what I considered to be the bane of my existence up until December 14th, that's being Court of Stars! I'm going to say something controversial, and I don't intend for this to come across as racist, but I don't think I've ever set foot in Court of Stars since its release in Legion. What? Yep, but after doing it, it's actually pretty good. The only thing I didn't actually know about this place was pulling these three dudes is a bad idea, unless you're Asmongold. But what's not a bad idea is you liking this video and subscribing. Really helps me out. Anyways, you have to kill multiple enforcers so that you get her demons away from her. Yes, I know I'm stupid when it comes to dungeon logic, come at me. Regardless, this place is actually pretty dope in the M+ setting. There is, however, quite a fair bit of dodging, interrupting things, and lots of magic damage. So if you're a class that doesn't deal with magic damage well, you better be clenching your cheeks. The last section between bosses 2 and 3 can also make or break runs sometimes, so you better have some kind of add-on to help with this. Temple of the Jade Serpent! This is arguably one of my favorite mop dungeons, and yeah, the dungeon feels incredibly easy. Now, that might be because I did a +2, and that's basically M0 for a dungeon that never had Mythic as an option, but still. I was expecting to be near death sometimes, and I was. Like, twice. Bosses don't really have anything going on mechanically, and the trash is relatively straightforward, with the really only big thing being the sludge monsters from 4chan that cast repetitive fears. But my biggest question right now is this. Isn't Wise Mari supposed to be spawning some kind of elemental ad? And if so, where is it? Because it's clearly not here. If this is wrong, we can battle it in the comments. So here's my opinion here. If you're someone who's trying to push keys for the first time, doing keys for the first time, or trying to get your first 15 or 20, this place is my personal choice. Which can also be said for this next place, Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. I hear so many people saying that Shadow Moon Burial Grounds kinda sucks, and to some extent it does, because it's basically just a purple version of Ridgefire Chasm, but without the fire. It's also full of orcs. Who likes orcs? It's also pretty linear, but then again, I can say the same thing about Temple of the Jade Serpent, since it's also pretty linear. I'm beginning to realize that Mop and Wad had lots of linear instances, which is funny because that's when the game fell apart. Coincidence? I will say that SBG is split 50-50 on things that can kill you. Things like poisons, disease, and magic from spiders and casters are some examples, all of which are easily avoidable with interrupts, stuns, or even dispels in some cases. So just like Temple from a moment ago, this dungeon is great for practicing key pushing, first-time M+ players, and high-end keys as well. Halls of Valor! Oh yes, Halls of Valor. I really do love this dungeon. Its bosses are pretty simple, nothing crazy to worry about, and come on, you can't not look at this place and say it's pretty. Because honestly, it's one of the best looking dungeons out there. Trash is also pretty great too. Good mix of interruptible things and things that can hurt you so that you can repent for your sins for playing Shadowlands. Just remember that the Rune of Healing was sent by the jailer, and you'll be fine. Don't ask how it got there, otherwise you'll be sent back. Hyra is, I think how you pronounce it, is the one boss I'm gonna worry about, as I eventually learned that you could realistically remove the Mystic Empowerments, but what I did learn is that you can't really remove them that well, so this might be one of those fights you want to use Bloodlust or CDs for. The fact that Fenrir changes spots from time to time actually makes routing different, so it gives a bit of flavor to the dungeon. And the fact that I forgot what the Aegis did and killed half the party by accident also proves that I suck chode. Permission to yell at me granted. Somebody add this to the Dungeons of All Time book, because this one is good. So, what is my final verdict on World of Warcraft Dragonflight for the PC? Let's just start from the beginning. The story is quite solid, building upon the aspects in their stories and the struggle in their struggles, as well as the struggles of the natives of the Isle of Deez due to the return of the Primalists. Speaking of the Primalists, their story is also quite solid too. The zones are truly stunning, with lots of fun and out-of-the-way quests and events for players to enjoy, regardless of your playstyle. Dragon riding, while it might have been ripped from Guild Wars 2, is single-handedly the best expansion feature in World of Warcraft. Period. My only ask is to make it available in the entire game, but I'm guessing that modular design thing is still in place, right, Blizzard? Endgame wise, the fun zone events like Siege of Dragonbane Keep, the Grand Hunt, or the Ascar Soup Pot, and more are fun community events that make players visit these amazing places and interact with the world much more often, rather than just doing world quests and calling it quits. Speaking of world quests, with them now lasting 3 to 5 days and actually, rewarding a bit better than they used to, it makes it that you're not rushing to be online every day of the week, which for some casuals and even those high-end 0.1% players, it's a nice added bonus. That can also be said for alts too, as you'll never need to worry about catch-up that much since most of it is easily obtainable, as Dragonflight is probably one of the most alt-friendly expansions ever. Remember Shadowlands' promise? I really love how professions turned out this expansion as well. They're all simple to operate, and their purpose is truly incredible for your alts and main character progression. I hope it stays like this way moving forward. The dungeons are pretty standard, but all of them have some unique things to them, so no hate to them all. Except Halls of Infusion. Vault of the Incarnates is a great starter rate for Dragonflight with some great encounters to back it up. PvPers are going to have their fun with progression, solo queue, and of course, getting shredded by a Warlock. Mythic Plus so far also feels great. Bringing Legacy Dungeons into the mix was only introduced recently in Shadowlands Season 4, and it's working amazingly well. The removal of affixes like Necrotic also helps tanks out too. The improvement to allow M+ players to have near Mythic raid gear is also a huge bonus as well, so props to you, Blizz. I hope this continues in the future expansions, because I think this is going to be a great direction for Mythic Plus moving forward. There's a lot of other smaller things that are helpful in Dragonflight too. The edit mode and UI changes are also really nice, they're not super over the top, and are still tried and true to the same UI you might be familiar with something like Classic WoW. The extra reagent bag and the fact that reagents now stack to 999 is a huge bonus for crafters, and the revamped talent trees are awesome. And if there's one thing that I will not complain about being borrowed back from Classic, talent trees are it, because I really like them. Overall, I think Dragonflight is the best World of Warcraft has been since the launch month of Legion. That's over a half a decade ago, people. I truly do think Blizzard has nailed it with this one. Taking those borrowed powered and AP systems out really changes things. Listening to your players changes things. Not drinking women milk in the office changes things. I hope that future expansions and patches are similar to this, because after all the pain that this game has suffered since late 2018, the millions that have left and will probably never come back, to the people that have lost their friends and guilds because of Shadowlands, and the near death of this game in the last year or two, if the future is just like Dragonflight, I think World of Warcraft will have a very bright future ahead of it. And if Blizzard can pull that off, World of Warcraft may have a shot at returning to its former glory. This video took a lot of work to make, 2 months of work to be exact. So if you liked the video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. I don't post as often as many people, but when I do, I make sure that it was worth the wait. Hopefully. Besides, I've always wanted to do this full time, and your support is helping me get there. Will there be another Dragonflight video when 10.1 comes out? Well, if this video gets a lot of praise from a lot of people, then yeah, there will be another video. Otherwise, you can treat me like Barnaby and spam video when in the comments. With that, my name is PandaPowerSauce, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!